Bobo is saying, how do you think the removal of Imran Khan will impact Islamic extremism in Pakistan? Well, it's really hard to say this early on, right? Because the civilian government in Pakistan is less influential when it comes to the impact on extremism in Pakistan compared to the military and some other elements, extremist element within Pakistan. I'm not saying they're not, it doesn't have any influence. Obviously, it does, right? And not knowing, there's so many external factors involved. So, as any prediction on this could be easily wrong. But not knowing anything else, Imran Khan himself was not a good actor when it comes to his influence on Islamic extremism in Pakistan. Okay, it's not fair to call Imran Khan an extremist himself, and I see a lot of people do that, and that is not at all fair. Okay, Imran Khan himself is not an Islamic extremist. He's one of those wishy-washy, Sufi, hippy dippy kind of people. So that's the brand of Islam that he has, right? But at the same time, he has been very good for the Taliban, right? When it comes to recognizing Taliban without any criteria or any, demands for human rights, standards or anything like that. Imran Khan has been good for the Taliban, has been a force for that. He's also the guy who mentioned that Bin Laden was a martyr, and that was pretty insane, right? But again, I think the main, so again, it's very simplistic to say that the military in Pakistan is a much more important element when it comes to extremism, because the military in Pakistan is such a gigantic institution that is just like, you can't just talk about it as if it's one thing. But I think when it comes to different extremist groups being stopped or allowed to do what they want or supported, so there's three different extremist groups based on what the military wants in Pakistan. They either get supported or just allowed to carry on or stopped. Okay, and I think which of these three things is done in Pakistan is mostly dependent on the military, right? In fact, technically, whether Imran Khan stays in power or not, is also mostly dependent on the military. So, yeah, I think the people who are actually in charge in Pakistan are still in charge in Pakistan, right? I don't know if that's fair to say. Let me see. Um, so Imran Khan, so Ibn Qayyam in the live chat saying Imran Khan has the whole of the country behind him at the moment. I think that's um, not fair to say. I think it's fair to say that he's very popular. Okay, you can't say the whole of the country. I think that's too much of a generalization. But yes, Imran Khan is extremely popular, but he doesn't have the most important part of the country backing him right now, which is the military. So no, he doesn't have the whole of the country. He could have all the civilians backing him. And if he doesn't have the military backing him, he doesn't have anybody backing him. Like in Pakistan, that's the main thing. Okay. Um, so yeah, the part is Ibn Qiyam in the live chat saying the parliament should have waited until the next election and allowed the democratic process to play out rather than forcing him from power. Well, the parliament, I think, is getting their orders from somewhere else, which is the military. Maybe I think. Like, I don't think like you should. I don't think in Pakistan you could. I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like you could just tell the parliament what to do and what's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's very interesting. In Pakistan, they always play this game. They're like, oh, US bad, US bad. But behind the scene, they're like, Daddy, US, please send us more money, right? So what Imran Khan was doing was he was kind of not playing along, right? The game that you have to play in Pakistani politics is go to the people and say US bad, and then behind the scenes and go to the US to like, yes, Daddy, more money, please, thank you, Daddy, right? So that's how it's supposed to work, right? But Imran Khan was kind of being annoying to Americans and the political elite and the military, because he was genuinely like anti-US and anti-Western, right? He was just like anti-Western through and through, right? So I was like, man, that's not how any of this works. Like, no, what are you doing, right? Like, we wouldn't like and so he was getting too cozy with China, and then he was getting too cozy with Russia even after the Ukraine stuff, and he was like, "Are we your slaves?" Like, well, no, you're not the slave, but how about some sanctions from the European Union, your major trading partner, right? Like, your economy is suffering significantly. Would you like some sanctions now for getting closer to Russia and alienating Western countries? Like, your entire economy is dependent on your friendship with Western countries. Like, you want to bite the hand that feeds you. So that's like politically, that's just insane. So a lot of, like, Imran Khan is like acting like this is a conspiracy by Americans to remove him, but at the same time, like, okay, so but what he calls a conspiracy is something that people already know. It's publicly, okay, so it's public. Like, it's not so what he's trying to call a conspiracy is the fact that Americans came to the political elite in Pakistan and were like, hey, it wouldn't, if this guy was not in power anymore, we would be okay, right? It wasn't like, but he's like, he thinks like, oh, look at this, I have unraveled this conspiracy. Like, dude, like, they just told you're being anti-Western, and Western countries are saying, yeah, we don't like you. That's not a conspiracy. They're just openly communicating with the rest of your politicians that it would be nice if you were not in charge anymore, right? And so other Pakistani politicians, realizing that their entire economy depends on their friendship with Westerners, they were like, we need to get rid of this guy, right? So but what people in Pakistan are calling a conspiracy is they assume that it goes as deep as, like, I don't know, giving money to the politicians directly. I mean, I'm not saying that's not happening, but there's no proof for that yet. The things that they have brought to light is just normal communication between different countries, right? But there's no evidence for any, like, money being sent to Pakistani politicians to remove Imran Khan. There's not like that level of conspiracy doesn't exist. Yeah, I mean, it might exist, but there's no evidence for it. What else is Ibn Qiyam saying in the live chat? You are right that the military is by far the most powerful institution in the country. Yes. And Ibn Qiyam is saying, sorry, I was exaggerating. Wow, Ibn Qiyam is very open to the criticism. That's very rare to see in the live chat. I hope I show the same level of acceptance. Somebody on Twitch, Shaky, who's this? Shaky. Okay, on Twitch is saying the way he has gained popularity, especially after ousting him, he probably will come back to power. Yes, a lot of people are saying don't just dismiss him as God. He's not like you can't, even though the military in Pakistan has a lot of power, you can't just ignore the level of popularity that Imran Khan has. Like, it's worth something. So you can't just be like, okay, bye Imran Khan, it was nice knowing you. It's not like that, okay? So oh yeah, and so also Susanna is mentioning also not to mention his fragile relationship with the IMF and the ballooning foreign debt. Yeah, this is a guy that mentioned that he's gonna, like, stand up to the IMF and not do any more, but he was like, he went back and forth with like, he promised people that he's not gonna borrow from the IMF, but then he was like, okay, we have no monies, and he went back to the IMF, and then halfway through, like, no, screw you, we're not gonna accept your terms. And then again realized that, okay, we need the money, and then went back to the IMF. Like, the management of this, like, he's not a good politician. I know he's a good, like, he has charisma, and that's why people love him, and he acts strong, tough to this bully American, and the anti-American rhetoric sells very well in Pakistan, so that's why he gains popularity. But when it comes to being a politician, he sucks. Like, when it comes to financial management, I mean, his greatest achievement has been making an Islamophobia day in United Nations. Well, like, I mean, thank you for that horrible thing that you just left right before he was removed. He had to leave the stain on the United Nations. Amazing. Yeah, and Ibn Qiyam in live chat saying a lot of the projects co-organized with China have fallen behind schedule due to Imran Khan's organizational incompetence. Yes, he's horrible at this. He's horrible at this.
Hey guys, if you want to join these streams live, get your comments and questions read by Ali and Armin and the guests, and most importantly, to get full access to the full video versions of all these episodes, become a patron. Link in the description below.